Welcome, martial arts fans and global martial arts enthusiasts. This is the 7th World Kungfu Championships, and we are here to celebrate the arts, the forms, and the weapons of traditional Wushu, also known to many worldwide as Kung Fu. The World Championships come to you live on location from the Sichuan International Tourism Trade Expo Center in beautiful Emeishan City in the gorgeous province of Sichuan. An incredible city, wonderful, generous people, and the best food this broadcaster has ever had, hands down, worldwide. Here at the World Championships, we have over 3,000 athletes from dozens and dozens of countries representing the true diversity of martial arts. We are showcasing the traditional forms in competition, yes, but we're also celebrating individuality and martial artistry. This is the final day of the World Kung Fu Championships here in Emeishan. It has been a fantastic tournament, festival really, a festival celebrating the global diversity of Chinese martial arts. And sometimes martial arts is inspiring, sometimes it's chilling, sometimes it's violent, and sometimes it's just straight up cool, and that's what it is today. We will be seeing beautiful forms, the Tai Chi, but we will also move into some traditional and even almost ancient weaponry. And you are in for a treat as we move through that today. We will have a lot of questions, I assure you of that, as we see, particularly as we move into the weapons and traditional weapons later today. And I will ask those questions on your behalf. Follow our curiosity to my broadcast partner, a lifelong Wushu practitioner. He's a coach, and he's been a competitor here at the World Championships, an IWUF accredited official, judge, and referee. He's going to help us make sense of everything we see here today. This is my friend Tony Sims. Tony, welcome.
Good morning, Robin. How are you? Good morning, viewers.
This is going to be a really fun, and like I said, we learn a great deal in many different ways about life and about artistry. But as we look down our rundown of the session today, we will start with Tai Chi, and we will move into the double daggers, the double broadsword. We saw the broadsword over the last few days, but then as we get into some of these traditional weapons, flexible weapons, soft weapons, we will have many questions for you, Tony, as we see here. We will be on carpet 1 today. There's another look at our session schedule. The athletes are grouped by age, and women from Group A, very young, to Group D. I don't want to say very old, that would be incredibly disrespectful, but our seniors. And as we get later in the day, we'll go through the soft and traditional weapons, and then bare hand versus bare hand routines, and bare hand versus weapon routines. Tony, it's going to be real cool today.
Yeah, and it's an exciting day to see the choreographed fighting events later in the day that combine sort of the individual practice to show an even higher degree of coordination and skill while the competitors simulate fighting. Sometimes we see that with weapons, and that will take place on other carpets. I don't know that we'll have a chance to see that, but we'll see the exciting bare hand fighting sets, and they are truly captivating.
Around the city, we have seen people training and practicing and sharing techniques. Today, this morning, out front, there was a cornucopia of the most fascinating and interesting weapons that one will ever see in one place. Some of the older traditional weapons, Tony, they're going to be incredibly curious, and we'll look to you for some background on some of them. We will start with Tai Chi. Tony, tell our viewers what we're going to see here.
Well, probably one of the most recognizable Chinese martial arts that people see and associate with China is Tai Chi. We see images of people practicing this sort of slow-moving art form that really allows folks to increase circulation, strengthen breathing. It is one of the most popular internal Chinese martial arts styles that's practiced internationally. Here we'll see it with Tai Chi Jian, which is adding the sword element to, again, a focus on breathing, balance, coordination, flexibility, that all reflect martial technique. However, those techniques are slowed down so that the competitor focuses really on balance, internal strengthening through breathing, and demonstrating the martial technique. So we'll see that with Tai Chi Jian. Probably we'll see multiple competitors on the carpet again. That looks like a competitor from the USA, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe, maybe not.
All martial arts are an exercise of the body, but they're all an exercise of the mind as well. But here in Tai Chi, there is a particular focus on the mind, is there not? We may see three at one time here.
Yes, Tai Chi Jian, the Tai Chi forms will have a specific time parameter, but one of the things with the traditional Tai Chi forms is they can take a while. For competition, we add some time parameters because of the nature of the competition and structuring the competition. But those forms, just the endurance to move through those forms slowly, maintaining balance, strengthening. It's one of the reasons that Tai Chi is such a popular sport for conditioning. Looks like we are reorganizing our athletes there.
Fumiko Shimizu and Fumiko Tanabe
from Japan, and then yes, we do have Chi-Ching Yu from the USA, I believe they're in the center.
I found personally, and I don't think this is an individual or too unique of an observation to make, is that as you season as a martial artist, maybe you start to appreciate and understand the beauty and the elegance, but also the challenge of these internal martial arts.
Well, we will see that. Tai Chi Jian, I think you mentioned yesterday, Robin, about the whole nature of slowing some of the movements down and the challenge when a movement is slow. You have nowhere to hide balance issues. And also when we talk about adding a weapon to this choreographed routine, that's another dimension of difficulty. People often talk about Tai Chi as cloud-like movement and flowing like water. So we'll look for this type of flowing movement, but also a relaxed power and energy through that should sort of emanate through the end of the sword as people are practicing weapons.
Now, tell me about the grip here, to keep that sword stable and not show any wobble in the body. One would assume that would be a tight grip, but to be relaxed and expressing Tai Chi, we can't have that tight of a grip.
That's right. That's one of the challenges and signatures of Tai Chi. When you see Tai Chi that is too stiff, you know that the practitioner is still young in their development. So, yes, you have this intention, martial intent of the weapon while also maintaining a relaxed posture, but the frame is still very strong and alert.
People around the world have probably observed people practicing Tai Chi outdoors. And it feels, there's a natural connection to the outdoors that you feel when you're relaxed and flowing. To nature.
You see a lot of martial arts practiced in the parks of China, but you especially see Tai Chi and some of the internal arts. I believe we saw Bagua earlier, but you often see Tai Chi. Many of the pictures that we'll see of China through tourism brochures will depict people practicing. And here, as we've mentioned, there wide-ranging styles of Tai Chi, many families of Tai Chi styles. So
The sign of somebody reaching or nearing mastery in anything is making something look easy. Like it requires no effort. And I find that when I watch the beauty of Tai Chi, at its best, it looks effortless, which is, of course, deceptive.
it's a great observation, Robin, but you're right. If you try and go out and practice some of these movements and realize how hard it is to maintain balance and relaxed posture, but also be very alert and demonstrate the movement and demonstrate martial intent through the movement.
The training of your focus and your mind seems to be a challenge when you're describing the state of mind, alertness, martial intent, which is a focused and not hard, but engaged mind, but then we're looking for a body that isn't expressing that. It's a very fascinating dichotomy. There's a wobble that you see.
And those losses of balance are very typical in practicing Tai Chi. It's part of the practice.
Xiaoning from Macau.
One of the other things that you'll see with Tai Chi and an indicator of the skill for the Tai Chi practitioners is changing directions, and very often changing directions and rotating on one foot.
And doing it in flow and balance.
So that there's not an interruption in the form.
Janice from Australia. To come from Australia to China and compete and display your martial arts at the World Kungfu Championships, this must be a great feeling for her.
Well, it is the festival nature of this world competition. The other thing that you noted that is special about this competition is that it brings practitioners across generations together to practice, and what a wonderful opportunity for practitioners to show the range of practitioners for Chinese martial arts. There are some martial arts and sports that just lend itself to sort of this younger, very fit, agile body of youth, and Chinese martial arts really creates an opportunity to continue to develop your mind and develop your body through the years, and so this festival allows us to see that.
And it's the type of thing that we'll do our best, we'll use the language that we have, but it's hard to explain that feeling of, to get oneness and sharing that there is in this city over the last few days. I will have a hard time explaining this when I get home, what the feeling of this place is like.
Well, it's very rare that you bring thousands of competitors together on a stage. It really does show you the reach and breadth of Chinese martial arts around the world.
When we put these women who have just expressed Tai Chi side by side with some of the explosive and power and intense martial arts that we've seen over the past few days, and then you put it next to some of the weapons that we will see later, and 4-year-olds and 74-year-olds, it really shows you just how wide and diverse Chinese martial arts is.
Yes, it's a beautiful example of the scope of Chinese martial arts. We have seen some really incredible displays of the diversity of Chinese martial arts in one competition over the last few days.
And when you put it back to back with the World Wushu Championships, which you and I had the real privilege to get to call the Sanda competition, you get an even bigger scope of what Chinese martial arts can be and is. As you see Yusuko here from Japan. a lot of people never truly relax to the degree that these people are, that these ladies are. You know, we go through our lives in a rather tense state, the worlds that we live in. You can just see the benefit here of training yourself to be truly relaxed and in flow.
Well, this is a good example of both a sport and an art form and the health rendering properties of Chinese martial arts, with this philosophy that strengthening your breathing and your circulation really improves your health as you age, which is one of the reasons that you see our senior practitioners continuing to train.
We've studied how we feel and how we experience the viewing of something. When we view combat, it does something to our brain. And when we view, comedy, and when you view this, there's a serenity that you can feel. You can truly feel it. You're observing a human being in a state of flow and expression. But as you described an internal martial art, you start to think about it if you do any meditation practice, or even to a light degree yoga, that connection of the mental state and the physical state, and you're training where those things blend here.
The movement of Tai Chi across the floor, and we're watching Tai Chi Jin, and as I mentioned, there are many different styles of Tai Chi. The movement is another element. While you have some movement in these other sports, for example, in yoga that you mentioned, it rarely happens off of the mat. So the scope of the movement and the balance, while still integral with the breathing, is different. Tai Chi incorporates martial technique and the same and then adds dimensions of movement in an even larger space.
When I watch the movement as they move their body through space and travel across the carpet, the word that comes to mind is exploration. It feels like they're exploring the space.
Well, these choreographed routines, again, like we looked at other, and as is the general practice with Chinese martial arts, those routines are structured in a way that continue to help the practitioner develop specific skills. Then the forms will very often display their expertise with those skills. So we're looking at some of the traditional forms. There are also contemporary forms that incorporate even more explosive and acrobatic movements, but still capturing the essence of Tai Chi. You might have seen some of those at the Wushu World Championships, where they have taken the foundations and principles of traditional Tai Chi and incorporated them for a sport dimension, where they add difficulty movements we call Nandu.
Flow is actually as well a psychological and biochemical state. It's been explored a great deal over the last decade or two. It's a state that performers achieve and get into. And whether we're talking about something like dance, or we're talking about something like extreme sports, flipping a motorcycle upside down, or free climbing, flow itself is a state that one attains. And this to me feels like a way to train the state of flow. In addition to training your body and the health benefits, you are training a physiological state. Now, she's moving a little faster than some that we've seen.
That's a great observation, Robin. You'll see throughout some of the forms, they will show this relaxed into explosive power, this sort of jing. And that's what you see there are some styles that emphasize that a lot more than the other styles. So what you see with that practitioner is that sort of short explosion of power that you are cultivating as you practice your Tai Chi.
When we were getting to commentate the swords, broadsword and straight sword, yesterday and through the weapons today, a term that most people have heard, or a concept they've heard, is that the weapon becomes an extension of the body. And you really see that here. Once you slow it down, the descriptive words you used where there's nowhere to hide, that sword has to end up becoming truly a piece of you, or else you will see it when they move slowly.
Sure, Robin. I was borrowing your term. You said nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
We talk about on the carpet, or at least when ever I train athletes that prepare to compete, is you leave all of your best out there on the carpet. But that is one of the elements of this competition, and we've seen people sort of lose focus, lose the sequence out there on the carpet. The carpet, while we have multiple competitors out there, can feel so large, and there's so many eyes. So you really have to rely on your practice, what you have done hundreds and hundreds of times, because there's so many potential distractions out here. Once you go on the carpet, really allowing your focus and your practice to take root.
I mentioned the studies that have been done, the scientific studies about flow and achieving the state of flow. And one of the precursors to it that causes or allows it to happen is that the task at hand must be challenging. It must be challenging to your limits, to your physical and mental limits. And when we bring these practitioners out here and we add the extra dimensions of the audience and anxiety, pressure, competition, that raises it up to the limits of your abilities. And that actually is an aspect of being able to achieve flow at an even higher state. So at their best, with these extra challenges, these martial artists can be performing better than they ever have. That's what you hope to achieve.
Sure.
But if you do not slide into flow, it can all come tumbling down. And we haven't seen too much of that this week, but we've definitely seen people, jarred from their forms.
Well, practice is one thing and performance is another. And so now what people are doing in competition is actually performing what they practice. And here they have cameras, huge audience, all watching their practice. So for some of them, that distraction is enough to interrupt what is typically their practice. And so that is why coming to competition also adds another dimension of your practice. We know some of these competitors that have stumbles in their forms may not have had those stumbles some of the times when they practice back at their venue. And that's, again, as you've pointed out, this sort of festival nature of the competition is really part to enjoy and display martial arts. For some practitioners who are very new to their styles in Chinese martial arts, and some practitioners who are very experienced in their styles.
And the goal of a martial artist, and in some ways the goal of what it is to be human, is to seek improvement, is to seek development. And for those that haven't ever had that pressure of performance, that added dimension of performance, they get the benefit of experiencing it. And if they get the setback, that setback is a doorway. It's an opening to study yourself and see where you can improve. It's a gift.
It's a great gift, Robin, that you only enjoy or have when you have an opportunity to see other martial arts. And that's again, the festival nature here, people have an opportunity not only to see martial arts, they might have seen this in their national competitions, but now they've come to the international stage to see Chinese martial arts from around the world, to see some of their same styles that they've practiced and to see other dimensions of people practicing those styles. Here also at the festival they have a number of them. We've been very busy, but they have a number of seminars so the practitioners can go and continue to train both in their theory and then also seminars that provide practice aspects of their training.
You know, the organized events, like the competition and like the seminars and some official dinners, those are excellent. But it is the scenes outside of those things, the water between the rocks of just being in the presence of other people and the conversations that are had on the bus to and from, and all those things are of value. You know, whether it's sport or art, when you bring everyone together, sometimes there's this circus comes to town feeling that, you know, you only experience when you bring from around the world others like you and others different than you.
Well, this competition is held every couple of years, so some of these competitors have made friends through the previous competitions, and they have an opportunity to see their friends again.
And make new ones.
Make new friends. So it is a truly special aspect of these international competitions that the IWF has created a forum to bring together martial artists that might not have otherwise come together.
And Tony, you've been doing 7 hours a day of beautiful commentary, but have you been able to catch up with some friends from the past, other martial artists?
I have, and made new friends, which is always added dimension on those bus rides, as you mentioned, Robin. So when we come to these international competitions, the true heroes of these competitions are the volunteers and the officials that make everything look so seamless. All of the folks in the background, and we truly appreciate their efforts from the time we come out of the gates in the airport to the volunteers helping us through every aspect, and all of these countries have also experienced that. So huge thank you to all of the volunteers that helped to make these 7th World Kung Fu Championships happen for all of us.
As somebody who's studied martial arts your whole life, the study of martial arts often is the study of life. It's the study of systems. And your appreciation for the people behind the scenes and is part in due to understanding learning, the art of learning and the art. You use the word seamless. As we watch these forms here, the Tai Chi forms, seamless is the goal. Seamless requires all of this practice. The practice requires the small details in between. And you see how that system all develops, and you see it in all things.
One aspect of Chinese martial arts that is essential to the practice of Chinese martial arts, and I'm sure many other martial arts as well, is this whole notion of continued development and improving one's expertise with skill. And so while this is a competition, one of the great things that's happening is you have all of these practitioners watching carefully the various practitioners and their skill level, taking away dimensions of their performance that they can add to their training and think about areas where they can improve speed. I call it taking pictures in your brain about what it looks like when you have great balance and coordination in a routine. And so you watch people around the arena focused on the competition, even if it's not their event, but they have an opportunity to learn something about power, fluency, balance, dexterity, intention, which is one of the things that the judges are judging this Tai Chi Gen about. the practitioner's intention in addition to their movement of the sword.
As you were saying that, I was allowing my vision to blur a little and take in two mats at once. And over here we see this beautiful, gentle movement, this flow movement. And I looked over and there was a man with a staff, powerfully striking. And I thought to myself, what can he learn from watching this? And of course he can learn about flow and about control. And we look here and we think, what could she learn over there? And she could learn how this, as she's expressing power, what it could feel like to actually express it physically. And it's a fact, you can connect the dots so well as you go through a few days and start to philosophically see these martial arts expressed in such different ways.
Sure, our viewers are looking at Tai Chi Jin, Robin, but on the carpet adjacent to Tai Chi Jin is actually Nangun, Southern Staff.
Yeah.
You couldn't have two more different events occurring. So the demands on being able to focus while you have someone wielding a Southern Staff right next to you, those are pretty intense.
Yeah, and some of our viewers will occasionally hear a thwack. That is that staff on the carpet. I don't know how loud you hear it at home, but you hear it extraordinarily loud in here with the chants of the team as well. And these women are needing to be in that relaxed, expressive state as there's chanting, cheering, the staff on carpet. And this is what with the expression that we need to be in during all of that.
In some of our other Tai Chi events, a performance element that's added, it's not current right now because we have multiple competitors on the floor, but often for performance element, you will see Tai Chi perform to music. So we heard earlier asking competitors to give their music to the event coordinator so that they can coordinate the music with your performance.
See Miko, good control here. It's impossible to know, this is the group E, so these are our oldest ladies. And even if you were able to look and know by speaking to them that two of them were 70 years old perhaps, you wouldn't know if one, you will know by looking, but our viewers may not know that one has trained for 53 years and the other has trained for 3 years.
And they both come together at this international competition to show their skill to the judges.
Yeah.
And that's a great aspect of the training. We saw practitioners in events yesterday that were not as experienced as some of their competitors in their age groupings. But that's okay. It's all part of growth and development.
And I feel like the instinct, naturally, when we're looking at competition, is who came first, who came second, and who came third. And that is very third or fourth or sixth or 20th on the list of importance in this competition. Something very unique, a very unique experience observing this. You don't even see people wearing their medals, really. They'll be proud of it, they'll talk about it. Their friends at home who don't understand necessarily everything they've explored here will say, how did you do? And they'll say, I got second. But it's so much more than that.
Well, something that you've pointed out, Robin, which is as we continually try and explain the festival nature, in all sports and Chinese martial arts as this worldwide sport, in all sports, we have your more professional competitions, and then we have competitions for a broader sector of athletes. And in this festival allows us to see this sort of broader spectrum of practitioners. And something that is very unique is that we see this broader spectrum of practitioners in terms of different levels. Not every practitioner is an Olympic level athlete, but that doesn't mean that they aren't an athlete in their own right and want to enjoy international competition. This festival is one of the ways that the International Wushu Federation has created an opportunity for us to enjoy the practice of martial arts across many generations and across many styles.
I think there's, for the artists and the athletes, there's no question that is a great experience. But I think for us, the viewers, it's a great lesson too, that there are other perspectives. You know, and I'm not criticizing any school of thought, but the emphasis on who won is a somewhat limiting view of things. That is one aspect of an experience or an observation or being entertained or competition. That is an aspect, but it is a limiting aspect if you view it as the all-important aspect.
Well, you know, we have athletes on the carpet that are being judged by judges, and there are standards of practice that we want to recognize and celebrate. We also have athletes that, for many of them, being able to complete their routine on such a large platform is a huge success for them. So we want to recognize both of those accomplishments, both expertise and mastery in their skill area, and also for those who are very new to competition and coming to display their skills.
You can see how smooth Tomoko is. There's a little...
No, that's actually part of her form.
Oh, that little stutter.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the additional challenge of it, or because it moves you out of one flow and asks more of you, maybe?
There are, while we see this typical sort of moving flow throughout Tai Chi, you will periodically see changes in the momentum and the rhythm, and that was one of them.
And you can imagine how challenging that is. There's concepts that you want to try to express when you're watching or looking at or listening to an art form. And they're challenging sometimes because we're limited by the terms that we use. But I would describe them as being in something. They're in Tai Chi right now. Do you know what I mean? Emotionally and mentally and psychologically, they're in something.
Well, with Tai Chi especially, you're looking for the synchronization of both the breath, the relaxed power, the continuity of movement. And so that is something that you see. You're looking for the synchronization throughout the form, the martial intent as well.
As you start to see more of it, it's very calming to watch too, not just for them to perform.
Well, it's very deceptive because Tai Chi can put a real physical strain on your body to go through the forms. When you are practicing Tai Chi, you can work up quite a sweat, and as you look at the stances, the strength that it takes, for what you'll see with the Tai Chi competitors, the strength that you'll see in your core. Your core is essential in Tai Chi, and so the balance in emptying or waiting on one foot while transitioning your weight to another foot is an important aspect of Tai Chi. As you see them wait on one foot, center their weight and breath, and then transition and move. We have Yoshiko from the USA, and as you saw, just a loss of balance there, ever so slight, but moving.
Masako Shimizu is sharing the carpet with her, the last two for women's Group E, Tai Chi Xian.
So you had an opportunity, Robin, to see Jen in some of the other events yesterday, the fast-moving Taolu. Here is an example of showing very simple use of the same Jin blade in terms of parrying, blocking, thrusting, striking, different strikes, but with this dimension of Tai Chi movement. The judges are looking to see the relaxed power that's evident clearly in the shoulders. So you'll see many of our practitioners with these relaxed shoulders as they move. And as we watch the competitors make these parries or big circles in Tai Chi, you'll look to see that they maintain that relaxed but still alert posture so that their body doesn't collapse, as collapsing is very different than relaxing.
I can imagine this being a really, really beneficial thing for an athlete, especially somebody who trains tightness and strength and power, all those things, that this would actually help them immensely. She shook her head.
A little bit of forgetting the movement, and we saw this yesterday.
Yeah.
It's part of taking your routine to the carpet, and it's just sort of a brain freeze, and she's forgotten and decided to go off the carpet, and it's great receiving applause from the other folks around.
That experience is a massive benefit for her. It's like a slippery slope. If you make an error and then you worry about having made the error, the house of cards of awareness can change you. But a great experience for her to go through here.
Sure. We've now moved to, well, she's been waiting. She was the last competitor, so she's waited through 29 other competitors, and that can be nerve-wracking in and of itself. We've shifted to double daggers, which are short knives, women's double daggers, on our carpet. I'm sure our viewers will get an image very soon.
Yep.
Just as she...
Now this will be an easy connection to make, that idea that it is an extent of the body, because we can watch as she punches or swings her hand, and we have 6 inches of blade attached. It's a little easier to understand that concept that with the short weapon, I think.
This is Julia from Poland, and double daggers are often associated with southern weapons. You'll see a lot of the movements look similar to what you saw in Nanchuan yesterday.
It is not as simple as Nanchuan with knives, but in some senses, that's a place to start examining it as a viewer, I think.
Well, we'll see different levels of complexity of the form. Sometimes you'll see ground fighting with the double daggers. But it's a very specific range of techniques because it is a short weapon.
We have our competitor here from Poland, Julia, that you see. 3 Americans and a German competitor in this group. The next 2 will be out together. I believe they'll be the 2 Americans, Brilliant and Amber. Even within the weapons, we're going to see diversity has been a word that, you know, if you got a dime for every time it's been said around here, you would have a whole lot of dimes. But even within the weapons today, we're going to see diversity. You see the little daggers. We're going to see pole arms and long range weapons.
this area, I don't know if we'll see it, Robin, if we have any competitors performing it, but this area of China, Emei, has a dagger that is called the Emei dagger, and it's very unique. It spins inside your hand. It's made on small rings, but it also is a short range. So sometimes you'll see people perform the Emei daggers. Both of these young women have similarly choreographed forms. They might actually be from the same school.
And Liliane moves to first of three. We have two more with the double daggers. Jessica Du. Liliane had a moment where both daggers were passed to one hand, and she struck with the open hand. Just if you imagine, hold a pen or a remote control or whatever's in your hand, and you imagine even some of the shapes that she's taking, that it would create a different flexibility and engagement in your shoulders and your core, very different than just an empty hand.
Well, one of the challenges with double daggers is that it's similar to a bare hand. You don't have this excitement of a long weapon. You create a great deal of the action with the speed of your hands and the movement of these very short weapons, unlike the jin or the staff and some other things that you'll see. So it really is dependent on the movement. We've seen forms where the competitors are traversing the entire carpet because it's a very short range weapon.
Yeah, you imagine the space around the body and how with certain weapons it's filling that space out into large distances, and you get this big visual impression from it. It takes up a lot of visual space, and then here you see much smaller expression. You add the flags, add a little color, but you're right, the physical reach.
Here's a case where it's easy. It would be easier for you to see Robin as fast moving past your novice state in Chinese martial arts, but the flags now become a huge distraction because you can't actually see the blade there. So there is this element to the flags, especially for these short weapons that are that mask for the opponent that you have a blade in your hand. So.
Xuanjian.
Double straight sword, Xuanjian. When you see competitors with double weapons, Robin, you're really focused on the footwork. Both hands are busy, not just one hand, but the footwork becomes extremely important. Obviously, the sword play becomes important, but
where you are, where your weight's distributed. Will we see the hooked swords today too?
I don't know if we will on this carpet, but hooked swords will be in an other double weapons category.
Yeah,
so,
we have that.
Okay, so we might see it. Straight sword is, as you mentioned yesterday, straight sword is beautiful, and sort of double straight sword really doubles that beauty. We're seeing a great display by Rachel, I believe, of the USA.
If you just imagine the space, I believe this is, yes, Rachel. If you imagine the space, somebody standing there with their arms out in both directions, you see the amount of space you could fill. Now you see how long those swords, and from the reach of both of them, it's almost an imaginary orb that she'll fill with blades.
Well, straight sword requires the practitioner, because of the nature of the weapon, to these very precise thrusting, blocking, but when you have double straight sword, the coiling that is very typical with straight sword, becomes even more complex because you have two weapons where you're initiating that coiling movement. So you'll see here as she takes the weapon and starts the movement. So we talked about earlier, or yesterday, we talked about this whole notion of training your second hand.
Yes.
You would have to train your second hand in the same way to move with the straight sword. The wrist movement of the other hand. The wrist movement for the straight sword is different than the wrist movement for the broadsword. So we see balance, flexibility. Often common, you'll see in, especially in women's straight sword, you'll see those leaps and you'll see splits.
She's on cue.
These splits are also, you will also see in men's Jin as well. You see men's bare hand. But we are likely to see that, and aerials. And beautiful twisting sit stance there. These are classic positions.
The finishing positions with the swords in different directions are just so visually beautiful.
Well, the forms are both choreographed to include, at this level, fighting techniques, but also techniques for the performance quality.
And when somebody is young and first training, of course, we don't want them to ever forget they have a weapon. And you don't want the weapon against your body, even if it isn't sharp. But I would think that for a young martial artist with these swords, that the sword jarring and coming in contact with the floor would be a concern when you're young too. Just being aware of how far out into space you're reaching on the end. Beautiful.
So one of the difficulties of that movement is that usually when you see practitioners hold their leg up, they grab their foot and hold their leg up. So she was able to show strength and flexibility holding it up without grabbing her foot.
One might imagine, Isabella Miller here, one might imagine that in addition, as you mentioned, to the martial techniques and the combat nature that they're training, that these are brilliant demonstration arts, that you see them, you can use this in lieu of acrobatics or gymnastics or dance or anything, just as pure entertainment for people that are not martial artists.
Well, Robin, the whole nature of the uniforms, these beautiful uniforms that you see the practitioners in, it's obviously not what they practice in every day, but for competition and for performance, they add to the performance element. There's a whole science to, and we've seen a lot of different types of uniforms. There are uniforms that are consistent with the type of weapon. You'll see most of these practitioners with double straight swords will have short sleeve uniforms. These changchuan, we call them uniforms, people who practice long fist, the shorter sleeve uniforms. But this aesthetic of uniforms and colors that fit for the practitioner, that fit the type of event, that's part of what these practitioners add to the performance quality. And when you see these performances at events, at exhibitions, it is really exciting.
Yeah. You don't need a great deal of background or context or knowledge to just look at this and see beauty. And so it's perfect for...
Isabella's moved to first place among the double straight sword competitors, and we now have Catherine Luo.
Fast to slow, and after seeing the Tai Chi this morning, you can start just connecting the dots between the big picture expressions of so many of these things.
But as you see the practitioners, particularly Catherine and her footwork across the floor and the speed moving in from one technique to the other,
to a varying degree. All four of our straight sword ladies are very, very good and clearly have been doing this for a long time. You hope that there's maybe one that's newer to it that is getting the chance up close and personal here to see people doing well what she's just started doing.
Well, double weapons is not sort of a novice practitioner's weapon, so it's entirely possible that these young ladies, especially from the U.S., have been a part of some of the national competitions, which prepares them for this stage of performance, and more than likely have performed this routine in exhibitions, which also helps with the performance aspect. And she's moved to third place.
And all of the ladies in this grouping are from the United States, with the exception of the woman to follow, Angela here. Angela from the U.S. Sham, she's from Hong Kong. So I suspect these women have been under one roof, seeing each other, potentially even working together at different times.
Some of them may, but others, the U.S. has such a diverse training environment. So they might have just met each other here. If you're an East Coast resident, you might not come into contact. Now, she's just lost her tassel. And she lost, actually,
sword broke.
Her sword broke. So you asked earlier about checking weapons. And here's an aspect where, unfortunately, her score is impacted significantly by her weapon.
You see the tassel fly off first, and I suspect something's happened to the hilt at this point. Oh, you see the end, yes.
The screw came out, and once the screw came out, she had nothing to hold on to the sword.
Anytime there is a setback or a challenge or a failure of some kind, you look and see, was there a role that I could have played, or was there something that I did or did not do? And in some cases, the answer is no. My sword broke. It was beyond my control. But as you look to find the reason, did I inspect it? Did I travel with it properly? Or if you can always look and see what role you may have played, you'll have some benefit to something you can work on. I see the speed and the agility immediately, and I right away take your advice and start watching the feet.
Yep. Probably looking at a first place performance if she continues in this way.
Now you jinxed her.
You look at the coiling of her waist, her sword movement, the speed of her sword hands, and also her shoulders.
Again, the aesthetic beauty of watching this, in addition to its technical
You see
skill.
her stances, the precision in her stances.
The shoulders, and just the little subtle movements, but all control.
The speed of her sword hands tell the story here again. And she'll finish the form. It's a beautiful double straight sword.
Sham Hui Yu Lydia. Focus, intent, fluidity. Oh yeah, that is beautiful. I suspect you are correct, Tony, that we are looking at the new first place position. Yep.
Of our last competitor, Audrey Hui from the USA. Both she and her brother are international competitors.
You see speed early from her as well. Aerial to the split.
Audrey's mom also competed here at the World 7th World Kungfu Championships.
The strength, just to have that stability and the flexibility is very evident and impressive. In that moment where they just strike and hold. Butterfly and spin. Striking, backing up.
As she closes a very strong form.
Maybe number 2, we shall see. Strong across the board. 7 beautiful performances. And the double straight sword.
Double straight sword is a really beautiful weapon to watch.
Well, ranking 5. So the judges remembered and contextualized the early strong performances that they saw.
Group 4 to C group. Shuangjian.
So potentially older competitors and potentially more experienced. But those two things do not automatically go together. Olga from Russia.
And you see a different level of complexity to Olga's form where she's striking in opposite directions. So a very different form than we just saw with some similar elements.
This, to me, just as an observer, feels more contemporary, less, more modern in some way.
It's a choreographed form where she has taken elements that are well suited and showcase her speed, her jumping ability.
Here's some of the different directions. First competitor, good start.
We'll see an exciting form from this young lady.
Lyudmila of the Ukraine. Wow. Wow, double butterfly to split.
We saw her aerial. We'll probably see a butterfly somewhere there.
Right.
We'll probably. In the straight sword, you typically see more aerials.
Yeah.
Very strong performance.
Wow. Very intense. Some of the things that we experience and that we're exposed to are good fortune, just, where we lived or what our parents
There's a technique you.
Yeah. Aerial cartwheel, and of course you cannot use a cartwheel when your hands are filled with swords. So
8.9 high score. The difficulty was her first aerial was very vertical, and what you saw in the second aerial, body tilted, but the difficulty of trying to do 2 aerials in a row. And that's challenging. That's most of our competitors you've seen do one aerial, not two.
And then landing the second one to the
Into
splits.
split. Those non-do elements are.
We know what non-do means as far as, the adding that flash, but do you know what the literal translation? It feels
Difficulty.
Difficulty.
Yes.
Because the way we view that word as we've been using it, we can picture it to mean flash or sizzle, but truly it's difficulty.
No, actually in other competitions, and we're looking at a very strong performance here from Jacqueline Wong of the U.S. In other competitions, that those non-do elements actually have specific point values, similar to what happens in gymnastics, where there are point values added to certain techniques, right? Or diving, added to certain techniques. And so in those competitions, they would add those to increase the potential value. Now, you also increase the risk in the form as well. If you don't earn the movement while you don't earn the points, you could potentially lower your overall score because it interrupts the flow of the form. So there are trade-offs, and again, representative of your expertise. And we have Maria Ngo Go from Canada.
Now these patterns, these forms, the double straight sword,
balance move and flexibility. You just saw something that also is, I mentioned to you, managing those tassels. And that's a risk when you have straight swords. Tassels, little loss of balance. Tassels becoming intertwined, and also tassels wrapping around your wrist.
Yeah, she pulled the two swords. There was a setback and pulling them. And that one was beautiful.
Yeah, she's beautiful Wushu technique.
I feel like these forms maybe have some of the most natural translation to the World Wushu Championships, where we're looking at something that we might have seen, back in Russia 6 weeks ago.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Many of these are choreographed, what we would call optional forms, very contemporary forms. We haven't really seen a traditional double straight sword form yet.
She knows that she had a setback or two, a wobble on the aerial and extracting the swords.
Well, she has competitors in her division that didn't have any little hiccups there, so that makes a difference. But she also had a very, very strong straight sword form. Otherwise, the nature of competition is those things impact your score.
If all else is equal, and you had a wobble or a loss of balance, that will be the difference. So she is the fourth to come out.
See one of my coaching buddies there from Kazakhstan standing in the white and blue, one of the Taolu coaches at the international competition level. You ask about one of the friends that we see. I had an opportunity to reconnect with him on the first day.
It really is something that you have to be here to really feel it. And, even the nature of where you eat and the hotel you're at, they're all large tables. Everywhere you go, you will be meeting people and you will be learning something. And Maria in fourth of four, and you pointed it out. It was a beautiful form, but in a day or a group of no setbacks, and you have one or two small ones.
We have a competitor from Indonesia, and Indonesia has some very strong Taolu competitors, so let's look to see. Nandira from Indonesia.
The change of speed. They're fast.
Footwork is beautiful. Sword hands are great. Indonesia.
Wow. Some of the presentation, we were talking about it being contemporary, you could see it in the World Wushu Championships, these forms. Something about the presentation, the very high chest and the shoulders back feels, like these athletes, this is the Chinese martial art interpretation of something like gymnastics or diving or that type of athletic event.
Well, no, it's actually in the beginning posture. This is something that I work with small children to understand. You will hear this phrase, Wushu comes from the inside out. So you should see that energy coming out and through the eyes as we see through our eyes. So this is characteristic of Wushu. So you'll see individuals who understand that as part of the performance element. You, across all of the styles, you will very seldom, if ever, see any of the Wushu practitioners sort of slumping. The energy should come up through the body, and she's just moved to the number one spot.
A couple of decades ago now, in the world of figure skating, there was a Olympic and world champion, Elvis Stoico, from Canada, where I'm from, and he studied Wushu, and it influenced his expression in other sports, and in his case figure skating, to such a degree that it helped him become a champion of the world. And I think it is that very aspect of posture and expression from within that he carried over to when he brought it to another sport.
I've seen Elvis Stoico perform Wushu before, Robin.
Yeah?
At a competition. If I'm not mistaken, he might have performed it. Canada has had the World Championships there, and I'm not sure if it was at the World Championships, but I've seen him
in Toronto, maybe.
Perform Chinese martial arts, and that's where I learned that he practiced Chinese martial arts. There have been so many competitions. Don't hold me to it, but I know that I've seen him perform.
Yeah. Could have been Toronto, could have been Brazil. It's really hard when you've traveled the world. Diana, Kazakhstan.
We have Courtney Randolph possibly from the USA. Yes.
Both in the women's group B and C, the United States are the biggest group of women representatives.
And you can see the difference in the nimbleness of some of the other competitors and where Courtney has to develop. She is performing the routine. She has an understanding of what should happen with the swords. And as she continues to improve, you'll see this footwork and everything move just that much faster. We saw her move into her split. She actually took a jump and then went down into the split versus people who do the aerial and land right into the split. So there are levels of development that Courtney can move to as she finishes her form on this world stage.
To be able to be here, right, feet, inches really from seeing some of these performances that she'll move towards that level. It must be just fantastic.
And it can be intimidating. She's just watched Ludmila from the Ukraine go out and take the number one spot, and then watched Nandira from Indonesia come out and show an even better showing and take the number one spot. And now we have Janelle from the USA. hard for the viewers to even see, but she actually just changed her grip in the midst of the form.
And that adaptation because she needed to regrip, or
No,
as
she
a-
needed
as-
to regrip.
yeah.
The way she opened the form required that she was holding the sword in reverse, and those are part of the small details that happen in straight sword that are required. Again, just as with Janelle, some of the same movements that we've seen with our competitors that have been first place competitors here. The same movements, just faster, crisper, the type of expression of the sword, the shoulders being able to wrap, the body being able to coil. So they will have an opportunity to take away that image in their minds of what they've seen. Tremendous straight sword performances as well.
Is there damage to the tip of one of these swords?
This metal for the performance sword is very thin, and you often will see this at the end of straight swords.
Yeah. You'll see it if you just watch for the tip, yeah.
So if you were to see practitioners performing traditional forms, they usually use those heavier weighted swords. Is this someone from Turkey? Yes.
Elif, Akils.
We might also see Turkey hosted both the juniors and the world competition. So you will see some of that preparation in their athletes that prepared for the world competition really have made a presence in the world of Taolu in Turkey. You see the choreography of the form similar to what you saw from our practitioner from the Ukraine.
I love it. And the traditional head covering just adds a beauty to it, really to her uniform.
One of the things that you'll notice is that her swords are proportional to her height, which is something that you also see in practitioners of both straight sword and broadsword. It's important for the balance of the sword and the movement to have the right size weapon.
She's strong. A couple of the other ones had a tiny bit more speed and fluidity, but you feel her strength.
Yeah, she's no doubt performed on the world stage before. As I mentioned, the World Championships have been held in Turkey, both the youth and the adults. So she could have possibly even performed the same form in Kazan. So she's clearly an experienced competitor.
She's waiting.
Showed us a great performance.
Trying to, maybe a top 3 performance?
I would say definitely a top 3 performance. We'll see. We've had some great performances thus far, but she's definitely there within the top 5 for sure, at least in my humble opinion.
The experience of viewing in such different ways for you, to view in a way that you are going to enrich the experience for the viewer is very different from you silently sitting there and watching strictly as a judge, isn't it?
Oh, sure. And also as a teacher, you watch some of the performers and some of the athletes, you can see the areas where they can grow and improve.
Yep, top 3. Moves into second. We have seen some stellar ones. And we will have one more from Egypt, Hagar.
As a teacher, I really want to see students develop and improve their martial technique.
When you saw Hagar drop the sword there, instinctively and not get as much height on the back foot.
Right, so there's an example of the risk that's involved, Robin, when you add the nandu. And clearly, as you see her try and This has happened to me. You try and recover in every movement there. So you see an urgency to showing her skill because she realizes that she's had 2 setbacks in the same form already. But you don't have this sort of flip in your form unless you already have a certain level of mastery there to begin with. And so some of the things you expect that those difficulties, you just have to hit them. She's probably hit that 50 times, in the past couple of weeks. But the one time in competition is where she hit the bobble, and the one earlier is just something, looks like there's an interruption to the flow there as well.
Well, that desire to find the next gear and overcompensate for a setback, you have the right gear. It's the gear you came to express.
It's the same area with the tassels. This is what happens.
Didn't get the height she needed.
It's tough.
Yeah.
She was hoping to be in the top there, but that's the nature of competition. It can be brutal, but there's always another day.
And we will move to the men's double broadsword. Shuang Dao. When we watched the broadsword, it was definitely one of my curiosities is, if somebody had mastered that broadsword, how different it would be to add another.
Oh, now you see it, Robin. We've seen some of these contemporary elements where he actually added an aerial into a split there. Oh, butterfly twist, I'm sorry. Butterfly, and showing you. This is typical of the broadsword, traditional broadsword, showing these continuous. You'll see this type of flower, and as you watch this double flower in front and back with your more experienced competitors, it'll look a little bit different. The kip up is also something that you'll see in traditional broadswords as well.
Triple kip in that case, and the triple butterfly earlier.
Song Tian All.
That's a nice start. 1, 2, and 3. And then into the sweep. It's the final day here today, and it has even more of a party festival atmosphere than the other two. Alex now from the United States. See some grace with that step back right away.
We'll see a speed probably in a section there. Yep, there you go. Those short, fast jabs are something that you often see.
The kip up, it feels so logical when your 2 hands are full. If you were somebody with
the kip up and this sort of flying tornado kick are you typically see in men's double broadsword as well. There's a butterfly and difficulty landing into that outstretched position as opposed to on your feet. So here's that movement you typically will see in the Shaolin styles. And so this form has been choreographed to sort of showcase some of the things that Alex, the difficulty movements that he wanted to put into a broadsword form.
the head springs.
Yes.
Very fun to watch. It's an interesting one. The variance of what we see has been a non-stop theme. But as we look at these contemporary double weapons routines that we're seeing, only 40 minutes from now, not even, we're going to be seeing some wild traditional weapons and almost ancient feeling weapons at times
We
later.
have William from the U.S. showing you also a double broadsword, but different style broadsword. Some older style broadsword that William is showing. Movements are still the same. The flowers will look different with this sword. It's shorter.
The petals are wider, but the flowers will be smaller. We spoke to him for a piece that we did. You can find on the IWUF YouTube channel. A feature we did on the American team. And there's the second.
William Teppenpaw.
Jonathan Wong, Australia.
Actually, Jonathan is one of the few competitors that have shown us wrapping. You haven't seen much wrapping of the broadswords in the other forms. Probably due to that wrapping.
There it is, yeah.
It's characteristic of the broadsword.
Did it just start to become less prioritized in the modern routines?
It's as people focus on other aspects. He also just showed us this flower in front and back. Some of the routines that we've seen, contemporary routines, focused on other elements of their form and not some of those classic techniques that you'll see in double broadsword. I'm not sure if Jonathan, I don't think he had an aerial in his form, so probably stemmed from more traditional forms.
And our final competitor in the double broadsword, Brian's
Brian's showing some of the wrapping.
Let's see if he puts it all together with the wrapping and the aerial work. Yes.
And the sweep, as he develops, he'll straighten his legs out. This flower is actually in the front and back as opposed to on the sides. But here again, a choreographed form that's added some elements. There's his butterfly. Another butterfly, two butterflies.
A lot of movement across the carpet. Corner to corner.
It looks like he may be younger than some of our other competitors. I can't tell. He could just have a young appearance. But again, there's an aspect of the wrapping that you look for the tip of the blade to come around the back as opposed to just over the head. And that'll come as he continues to practice.
A good finish for Brian Gao. Group B, double broadsword.
So we'll move to other traditional double weapons, and we might see some more unusual double weapons here.
Well, if out front of the building, oh, the fan.
Fan.
Yeah, out front of the building is any indication, we will. And I have a feeling this will be aesthetically incredibly beautiful. So much of it drawing from butterflies, you know, the imagery, the visual imagery. And birds. Visually, artistically, I just think that's absolutely beautiful. From a performance standpoint, I'm sure she's still growing, but the aesthetics of the double fan is just gorgeous.
So here's an example of how the festival addresses this diverse representation of practitioners. There probably weren't enough other women showing double broadsword, so we don't have a women's double broadsword in this age grouping, so she's in other double weapons, whereas we had enough in men's.
Right. There may be one or two, and but for me, the other divisions have been some of the most interesting, as we see side by side the variety.
We might actually see hook swords in one of these other double. I think you asked me earlier, in one of the other double weapons.
I think we've got another double broadsword practitioner coming up. Catherine, first after two.
She, also from the U.S., possibly? Yes.
Are her broadswords larger, or is she just littler?
No, they just look longer. They're not the large broadsword that we've seen. Looks like she may be performing a more traditional broadsword form, double broadsword form.
It's softer in the way she's expressing it.
Very traditional footwork and movement of the sword, the types of techniques that she's showing.
those elements of the Tai Chi movements done a little faster, but you see some connection to what we watched this morning. In some other settings, would they separate her from the modern broadsword?
Yes, in competitions,
Yeah.
they will have a contemporary weapons division and then a traditional weapons division most often.
Yeah. But here we get to see them together.
Well, the festival nature wants to appeal and provide as many opportunities for people to compete as possible. So that's where that other category becomes, and she's rewarded for very clear technique there.
And then another American, Eva, and a slightly more modern interpretation, or much more modern interpretation. These are Group B women, so they're quite young. You see what they're able to do.
It's a testament to the hard work that they've put in to prepare for these World Championships.
The knowledge that the coaches and the people that they train with have passed. And she moves to first.
We have Apollinaria
Yeah.
from Russia.
A little bit of a setback getting back up from those splits. When she froze in position, she looked very strong. And the low stances were her best moments, I think. Moves to third.
Lisa from the Netherlands here. What a fantastic representation of just one division. United States practitioners from Russia, the Netherlands. We have Romania possibly closing out.
The Ukraine also.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Did she?
That's a back little spasm.
Injury. We have medical professionals on site at the competition. They'll have to. They should allow the doctors to take her off.
just something in the lower back. It would be muscular in nature, probably, and that's painful. You saw the moment where it tweaked and she dropped her weapons and tried to pick them up and could feel that tightness or sharpness. And Alexandra has to not be distracted by that, and she's not. What are these blades? Long blade?
No, this is
Dagger?
Wing Chun.
Ah.
Wing Chun knives. Another short-range double weapon. They wouldn't fit in the dagger category because they actually are a different type of blade.
Not a sword either.
So, right. Looks most like a miniature version of the Southern broadsword.
The Wing Chun knives, very cool. Now you see the handle, a little protective handle. Very cool. And then kind of working them like tonfas there. That
Right.
same sort of. That is a cool little routine with a very neat weapon. I'm going to say the word cool a lot today, I suspect. Please forgive me if I nerd out for any moments. I apologize. But this is fun. We'll be curious about the history, and we'll be curious about the historical and cultural significance of these weapons and these routines. But sometimes they're just cool.
Alexandra moves to 4th place there.
What have we got here?
Possibly steel whip, double steel whip.
Your eye can see sort of that circular barrier, how much it widens that hot zone around the artist.
I think this is the first of one of our soft weapons that we've seen today. And difference being that it's double steel whip versus the one steel whip.
Still working on developing And typically, will the finish have the weapon retracted back on these long?
Yes, she was struggling a little bit to retract it back. Took her a couple of tries, but she was able to finally get it.
There's always, we're going to talk about learning and growth and improvement. And sometimes, and it's something we have touched on it in different ways, but it's play too. You go out and you play with these weapons as much as you protect yourself and you're safe. You play Wushu. She did very well. You'll know that she'll continue to get better. What have we got here?
Wing Chun knives again. Butterfly, also called butterfly knives. And it looks as if it's more a very traditional form, as you can see, following similar patterns to the Wing Chun that you saw yesterday.
The squared hips, squared stance, tight in, short range. strips there. When you put those butterfly knives in the traditional form right up next to a steel whip, or
looks like we had the cheering section for our Romanian practitioner there. It's one of our judges, international judges and competitors from Romania, looking on to see how her teammate fared. We saw Obiano yesterday, Robin, in Wing Chun, bare hand Wing Chun.
It is a beautiful martial art, Wing Chun. Oh, that was our Ukrainian athlete, Shamardina.
Oh, was it Sharmadina?
Yes.
Oh, so we're preparing for
Yes.
Romania. Sorry.
And we did see Sharmadina do the Wing Chun. And there's
Obiano.
And she also has the Wing Chun knives.
You're likely to see her flip the blades, as you mentioned, similar to performance there. She has flipped them.
Yep. Striking with the heel or the butt. It was beautiful. Loved it. There was something so to the point about Wing Chun, you know? And in this case, of course, with the Wing Chun knives, to the point. I wasn't trying to be fancy. I just said it. The elbow. That completes the women's Group B, other traditional. Now we will have the men's Group B, other traditional double. We'll have 19 competitors. I'm very curious to see what some of their weapons are. Beautiful wide shot there, as you see the big picture. Are those sais?
Sai.
Yeah.
Our Taipei athlete showing us double sai.
And much like we saw with the butterfly knives, where we see him use the butt as a striking tool. And those two prongs outside of the main prong as blocking and catching.
And this is a weapon that this is a event that you might only see at the international championships, at the World Kungfu Championships. You won't see sai included in the double weapons divisions at the World Championships. There have been some changes in the event, so they now have a double straight sword event. Baji, Bagua, Kwandao events. But because we have the opportunity to have the World Kung Fu Championships, we have a forum for athletes with some of the more unusual weapons.
Chen Yun with the double sai.
Looks like we have another butterfly performance. Barasini from Russia.
Much more movement across the carpet from his.
Yes.
And that right there, as he spins them together, gives you that butterfly flavor, I think, maybe where it comes from. Or as you spin them. be. Oh, man. Seni of Russia.
Double daggers. Thomas Schneider from Germany. Thomas Schneider.
Sometimes you see some of these dagger techniques in movies.
The sweeps that you just saw, very classic, traditional double dagger techniques.
Think logically, if you could take your enemy off his feet when you've got a short-range weapon, it makes sense. Stop him from fleeing the range. Double strike down to the side kick.
Tomas moves into third place.
I haven't seen the weapon yet.
Traditional Hungar Southern style uniform there. This is butterfly knives also.
And you see very different in the movement of the hips and some of the more Wing Chun gentle step, soft landing.
Yes, his body work is classic Southern style, Hungar style movement. This uniform that you also see is very traditional Southern uniform. The small.
The footwork is very nice. Small step.
Yes.
He was flowing very nicely, but it'll be a great learning experience. And continuing his form without having that setback of the drop affect him, that's a good learning experience too. It's tough when you're young. He won't see it this way necessarily, but the chance, the opportunity to experience that has made him a better martial artist. Because in the World Kung Fu Championships, after a drop, to come back from that drop, and then everything he did from that moment on was a unique and novel experience that he got to have because that dagger fell, that butterfly knife fell.
Third place score, Matus still.
You can imagine how well it would have been, how high it would have been without the one extra setback. But because he rebounded so well from it, he was able to score well. And this linear movement, much more traditional Wing Chun.
This is Emeishan from the Ukraine. Still see him develop in terms of power and control of the swords as his body develops and his skill develops over the course of his practice.
From the Ukraine, and he will have another Ukrainian young man following him. A little regrip there. Another.
Shishirbina.
Shishirbina. So young.
Oh no, that was Shishirbina. So perhaps we didn't see Lashin.
Ran Hao Li. We saw him yesterday performing.
Lin Hao is doing double straight sword. I think I've actually seen him perform in the U.S., Robin.
Now, those were butterflies as opposed to the aerial, were they not?
I'll have to look back. Probably, that's a butterfly, yes. A little loss of balance there for him.
You know, the number, I'm for sure this is the second time we've seen him perform, and he may have performed 3 throughout this tournament. And the amount of just focus and memory and training of training, the training of how to train that this young man will be going through will be so powerful for him as a martial artist and as a man, as a human.
He's a small guy performing a advanced form, so there's lots of great room to grow there.
There are 19 performers in total. We have seen 7. There will be 18 actually, with at least with Lashin out. Vladislav Irostov. The Wing Chun knives have been popular today. They're clean and to the point offensively and defensively. Not a lot of wasted motion. Which I guess when we picture Wing Chun is kind of the story of Wing Chun itself. Efficiency and effectiveness. Economy of movement and motion.
Sure, these the short range traditional forms that you've seen don't have this flourish or other performance elements don't predominate the form. So another double steel whip, it looks like. We have Brandon Liu from the US.
Hasn't, there it is, cool. Can you imagine a challenge there for him? He'll have to keep it going. You imagine these in a combat setting, in a military or martial setting, being very intimidating, especially when you're unfamiliar with them.
He's just had a little hiccup there, and this is, looks like he has a 9 section. You have a longer steel whip and then a shorter steel whip, and looks like he has the 9 section.
Still developing. You can see the joy, how much he enjoys this weapon. And you can see why. What a fascinating tool it is. But I can imagine that once this one gets away from you, it's tough to get it back under control.
Sure.
He fought through it. He didn't let it beat him.
Soft weapons can be particularly challenging.
Oh, daggers? First glance. Lucas. Poland.
Lucas showing us a very traditional double dagger form.
And it shows the empty hand as a salute. Clean, they liked it. 4 of 10 so far. Past the halfway point of the International Men's Group B. Other traditional. We see the butterfly knives.
Jorge from Peru. Another small guy.
Big knives.
From a long way away.
This experience for a young guy to come from South America to China, this moment that he's having, I hope he's enjoying it, but this has changed his life at this age. It's changed the perspective with which you view other people and other cultures by being here. So I hope this form felt as good as it looked like it felt. But so much more he will have gained from being here at the World Kung Fu Championships.
We have another butterfly knife form. It looks like it might be Vladimir from Russia.
It is Strebkov of Russia. More of that Hungar footwork, Tony?
Yes, he just had a little bit of difficulty grasping his weapon.
You work through it. There was something very pleasing in that sort of just tickles your imagination a little bit when they spin the blade back and strike with the butt of the knife. You can imagine.
Let's see if we have some replay for him.
He moves to second even with that little regrip. You can imagine in times of war and oppression when these weapons could have been used, choosing to strike not with the bladed end, give you a different result.
Jubei. Shongbin. Double steel whip.
And for our viewers, there's small links held together, small segments. 9 or less held together.
Yes, he looks like he might have 5 or 7 section. He's just not as long, maybe 7 section.
We feel like that may be easier to control. Would that be a good way to start with the?
Well, 9 would be too long for him.
Yeah.
He's a little guy.
He'll be striking the ground as he spins. But even for a taller person, would it be easier for them to control the 5 to start there?
It's hard to control. In general, often don't start with a whip, but a rope so the rope is proportional to their bodies. How did Jorge up to second place?
Nice. Good for him.
He has to feel proud of that.
Mean Tai.
And Tai is also showing double steel whip.
Very fast.
Right. This is a little stronger physically than the small guy. So this division is deceptive. You can have small guys and guys that physically have developed.
Mean Tai is quite athletic. You see it as he jumps and leaps, when he kicks. We've seen him for a few days now. Good young martial artist. I love those moments where he's able to stop them and let them stop completely. Imagine the control.
Well, it's one of the challenges for Min Tai's form. Those transitions should happen a little bit more transparently, like now transitioning to different techniques as he finishes his form.
Very nice.
That'll come with his development.
Those kinds of developments start by identifying where we can improve.
So he has the whip going in opposite directions in different hands. That was the difficulty movement.
See if they move him to the top couple. Four.
We have Aiden Nguyen from the USA showing double straight sword. Very fast wrist. His hand movement for his sword looks great so far. Nice aerial. And his footwork is very nimble. He's good handwork in his double straight swords thus far.
Our camera work gives us so many different views. Beautiful.
A solid form for Mr. Nguyen from USA. As he matures, you'll see his body work as he circles from the waist and not only from the shoulders with the straight sword.
Size. Again.
Marco from Peru, perhaps?
Yeah, it is. Marco Sanchez. The double sai. Blocking, striking with the blade and striking with the heel. This is a beautiful weapon. Great work. Nicely done. You see the two Peruvians, and there's a third coming up as well. Diego will come up right after Shemardin from the Ukraine, right here. We've seen him perform in Wing Chun before, and we've seen him perform with weapons as well.
I thought so.
I think the daggers. Just, you go to school and your friends say, "What'd you do this weekend?" Someone says, "Oh, I rode my bike and played video games." "What'd you do?" "I competed with weapons at the World Kungfu Championships in China."
Well, these guys have had to miss some school, so they've probably had nice send-offs from some of their friends.
I've enjoyed this young martial artist's work over the last few days. And then we see, again, Diego Mayo of Peru with the double sai. These middle range weapons, you see some sort of, in the traditional ones, you can see a connection to how they're used. If you substitute a butterfly knife for a sai or a tonfa, there are connections between how they are used. They all can cover the forearm nicely too, so used as a block or a barrier. Good work from the young Peruvian team. I think I see double hooked swords as we went by.
Looks like we're moving to Group C.
So slightly older men, also other traditional double weapons. So some men in their 20s and 30s with a variety of traditional double weapons. Just a little short break. A lot of focus for these officials and volunteers, judges. A lot of action around here. There's that hook sword. You've worked with these, Tony?
Yes, it's what I competed with at the
6th?
World, not the 6th, in Jinzhou. I think they came back to Jinzhou before. It's in the 90s.
And was it known as the World Traditional
Yes.
Wushu Championships back then?
Yes.
The embracing of the originally slang, improperly used term Kung Fu, and embracing it now. Wushu, of course, means martial arts. Kung Fu is a term to describe something that you work hard at and commit to. It's the hooked swords. What a beautiful weapon that is. And that knuckle guard, that is bladed as well?
There are multiple points on the hook swords. So you have a point on the blades near where you're holding. You have a point at the bottom. You have points on the hooks.
Now, so you give up the ability to thrust with a point, and in return, those hooks are able to work together and extend the length of your weapon.
The hooks have points on them also, so you don't thrust, but you can hook. And you still have the points at the bottom. You just can't see it because of his flags.
So on directly where those flag is underneath sort of
There's a
the
point.
hammer of the fist. Wow. It really is a beautiful weapon. Are there techniques, if you were to lose one of the weapon, are there techniques to retrieve it using the weapon in your remaining hand?
Not really. You shouldn't lose it.
You shouldn't, but it can happen.
What do you have? Fan? No.
Yeah.
We have more butterfly knives from Vincent Meng from the U.S.
With the squared hips of Wing Chun. Yeah, it's just something so no nonsense about this particular style.
As Vincent develops, he will see a difference in terms of his weight distribution on his feet to make his movements stronger.
Slashing. It's a long form, the longest.
It's a training form. Repeated, same movements, repeated, or fewer techniques, but repeated over and over again to you can see a clear distinction in those forms that are used for that have high degree of performance quality versus those traditional training forms.
Which aid in your development or are parts of your development. Double sword, Australia.
Corey Johnstone from Australia. You see the wrap?
The flowering. Been a lot of Australians here. Good personality, good character, vibe.
There are lots of Chinese martial arts in Australia.
You know, when you think of hemispheres of the earth, there's the north and the south, but if you split it the other way, Australia's on the half of the planet that China's on. You know, these groupings that we give things, this is Europe, this is Asia. Those are just arbitrary assignments of things. Australia has a great deal of connection to China and in common with China. Some of these are illusions that we just accept. We say them and then we accept them.
Another butterfly knife form, double butterfly knives.
You can see this man has been doing this for a long time. It's a real natural feel to what he's doing. Of course, it is not natural. It's a part of a lifetime of work.
Lee Kai-in from Macau.
You have taught us about the concept of martial intent. You feel that in this form, that is for sure. Your mind doesn't even have to imagine opponents. They're there, you see them.
Mm-hmm.
You see that opponent there. And you see what that opponent is trying to do and what he's doing. That was fantastic.
We'll see if the judges agree, Robin. Second place.
This is a big field as well. We've got 18, and through 6 he's in second.
Tomashiro from Nakacha from Japan.
The flowering gaining speed. Some of those freezes just not fully frozen.
You hear his teammates cheering for him.
Good work.
Oleg from Russia showing butterfly swords again. In this double weapon traditional division. Showing good footwork across the carpet.
Good commitment to his strikes. Something about the cleanliness of this weapon may allow it for, those of us with less experience consuming this to see that intent. Because when they intend to strike or block, you can see that cleanly, or see how much intention they have. A little easier to read and compare. Wow, they loved it.
It's like we have a sword and shield for you, Robin.
And when you think traditional,
Ernesto Gomez from Peru.
when you think traditional, this one comes to mind. There is no purpose for a sword and a shield except for military-type combat. So when you watch the form, you're taken back in time just a little bit. put on a battlefield.
Ernesto doing a great job showing good balance and footwork,
Love
good fighting intent throughout the form.
it. Have you noticed our Peruvians have had some real interesting traditional weapons? I would be curious to meet some of these coaches and find out where and how these are the weapons that we've seen them represent. That was a lot of fun.
It's a very popular form during exhibitions.
Catch the arrows, slice.
Looks like we might be Alexander.
Dirk DePleece have scored well. Ooh, battle axis.
Double axis. Looks like we might have moved. No, we're still
There's still a few more
large
in this
division, but let's see who we have here. We've had so many changes to the order.
The double axe.
This is Andre from Russia. Andre must have been added to our list.
Yeah. Or came slightly before. Very traditional and super cool. You see in his stance and his movement, even his body type, that these weapons make sense for him. A big, strong. There's a smoothness and a beautiful kick. There's an elegance to it, but this is a man who suits his tools, or the tools that he's chosen suit him. And he moves to first. Oh, perhaps we did move to the Group D traditional double weapon. Yes. That's so. WK from Sri Lanka. What has he got? Daggers?
Yes, double daggers.
So these will be our senior gentlemen. There's a Group E, as we saw with Tai Chi, of senior. But I've never seen a man, it's like when you have a dog long enough, your dog starts to look like you. Andrei Boykov and his axes, there was just such a fit. As we see WK here, moving beautifully with the daggers as well. Good finish. We have the Canadian, Stephen William Alexander from Canada. You see
Chun.
Two butterfly knives in his left This is a traditional Wing Chun approach. I love it. And we saw the judges reward forms like this earlier today when done with the proper intent and commitment and cleanliness. And that all business nature. Now there was a tiny bit of a mechanical vibe to him. Can that be a form of expression with Wing Chun?
No, what you're looking at is areas where Stefan will continue to develop in his Wing Chun practice so that the execution of the power,
That's
the
right.
short burst that comes from that very quick movement.
That's why I asked, because there is something enjoyable about watching it, but it seems like it's still a work in progress as far as just that little element. Bu Keng Kyung from Macau. Size. It is a fantastic weapon. Those mid-range weapons are, to certain people, they're a natural weapon. It makes sense to the practitioner. It adds extension and length and what you can strike or stop. Changes the range of combat just a little.
Well, this is an opportunity to take these training forms, these traditional forms that don't have this huge performance quality, and still have those forms judged, creating a platform. The Wushu 7th World Kungfu Championships have created a platform to see this diversity of forms that you might not see on a stage that really gravitates toward the more performance quality of the form. So it's great for us all around.
Fist blade? What do we call these?
Deer hook swords. And usually you'll see them in the internal style, so you see him with this circular footwork, bagua footwork. So you should see the same coiling that you saw before in the footwork.
Again, it's just cool.
And what you'll see is this Peter Kaiso of Slovakia?
I believe so,
Perhaps
yes.
you'll see as Peter continues to develop that coiling actions, this sort of transparency in the transitions from one direction to the other. He's a tall guy, and it's not easy to get low into that drop stance. So
It's a lot more distance to get low. You can imagine that the same tool is used defensively and offensively. To be able to see this side by side with these swords and these different backgrounds and different approaches. Keisel.
Peter Keisel.
And another Canadian, I believe.
It's like Warren Holt from Canada, the Wing Chun form.
And we've seen this form, so it is a traditional form. Is it a training form, Tony?
Looks like it's probably a training form. Many of the forms in the traditional world are training forms. But when you see this repetition of the same technique, it's giving the competitor or the athlete an opportunity to really develop that skill. Traditional world, you will see students practicing just your basic front stance, horse stance, combinations, basic punches over and over again, understanding that the muscle memory comes from the repetition.
And you're changing the neural pathways of your brain while building the stabilizing muscles and the strength and flexibility. The Canadian team, my people. But that's the thing. I mean, you can say that very easily in the teams. You see them cheering, wearing uniforms, but they're all the same people. You know, they're just people.
It's looking, waiting to see what the judges have decided. 6th place for Warren.
Did a good job.
Looks like we might actually have our other competitor, yes, on the floor, Shamardin from the Ukraine. A lot of Wing Chun stylists here at the competition.
And as you pointed out, this, you know, there may be less and less over time places for them to show their thing, especially in a setting where they can show it and compare and learn and share with people from all over the world. This is maybe the very best place they can do it.
So you'll notice, Robin, some of the same movements of the body, the short movements of the body that happen in Southern style also should apply here once they have the weapon. And that's what we see in the more advanced development of practitioners.
Oh, little adjustment there, but he caught it. Shaban Serhi,
So from the Ukraine. Ukraine well represented throughout the competition.
As they were at the World Wushu Championships as well. That little change of grip was a challenge for both gentlemen from the Ukraine, as it would be for anybody. We'll see 3 more gentlemen in the Group D other traditional double weapon. And then we are going to see some soft and flexible weapons as well. We have seen some in the other.
Paul from Malaysia.
These weapons are Not on his hand yet. Chopping. Slight different expression than some of the others.
More likely a southern style, traditional southern form, as opposed to the other that we saw that were specifically Wing Chun practitioners.
Mm-hmm. Very good. We'll wait for his score. The double broadsword here from Italy, Giuseppe Paterniti. I think that is the white stripes, if I'm not mistaken. If the award had to be given out now for the most vociferous, the Italians are still in the lead.
As Giuseppe makes his way through.
Nicely done. Gotta love those Italians.
So great to have that team support behind you. He
Great
moves to
defense.
third place.
Second last performance. So,
Vincent Liu from Hong Kong.
gentlemen,
Vincent Liu.
double broadsword.
Looks like he's doing a traditional double broadsword.
Pointed out a few times the southern footwork, the Hungar footwork versus the Wing Chun expression. Almost all of these different styles and subcategories and regions will all embrace almost all of these weapons, right? But some styles may focus on some more than others.
There are some weapons that typically, like the broadsword this broadsword, there are some weapons that you will see more often in northern styles, and some you'll see specifically in southern styles. And so we've seen a lot of those Wing Chun butterfly swords with southern practitioners.
So
I
now,
was just looking at our last practitioner,
yeah,
Vincent Liu, as we move into traditional double flexible women's group A. So our small, our young group.
yeah, women, very tiny women.
Actually, this is not double flexible.
Traditional double flexible is what they've put them in, even though that's what they called this group with Camilla of the Ukraine. And it could be other traditional double anything, including flexible, would be my guess. Double
So
other.
that our viewers know double daggers aren't considered a flexible weapon.
So it could have been miscategorized, or it could be we've got two young double daggers. Let's let them come in and be part of this group, which could be, I'm theorizing, primarily double traditional flexible. There you see the two young ladies with their double daggers. Camilla Klinchenko and Liana Semit. Oh, the nunchucks, nunchaku. Fiona Barnhart. This is considered a double flexible, Tony?
This is considered flexible. It's not double because it's not double nunchuck,
No.
but she's doing a great job with it. She just lost her form for a second there, but because of the chain in the middle, if you were to see a three-sectional staff, also would be considered flexible.
Yep. And so two nunchucks would truly be the double flexible, although there are two batons joined by a chain.
No, it's still the same, still considered the same weapon.
People really enjoyed that, as they should. But in the A group, they are inclusive. Very nice job, Fiona Barnhart. Moves to first with her single flexible, traditional flexible in part of the, there's Accuse, Ice.
From Turkey.
And the Italians still singing even for the young lady from Turkey. They like the white stripes. When you watch someone this young performing, singing or dancing, doing martial arts, tumbling, anything, it shocks you what people can learn so young now. Partly a credit to coaches and the knowledge that has been passed down and passed down and passed down about how to teach complex things. Coaches.
Yes. And coaches have raised the bar for what they believe children can learn because they have seen in countries, birth of Wushu, China, small children performing these complex or advanced forms.
There is a mindset called the growth mindset, where one believes that anywhere you apply effort and practice and knowledge, you will grow. And that is proven repeatedly throughout humankind. And part of that mindset is if you see one human being doing something, it just becomes possible. When you see it done by any other human, it becomes a possibility. And I think that's an extension. What you're saying is an extension of that belief. You see some other 5-year-old do something, that means it can be done by a 5-year-old.
Carol Dweck would be very happy to hear you quote her work.
Yes. Her book, of course, Growth, and it is a brilliant, brilliant book. There's another one that she has recently about power and posture, stance, and what that does for human performance. And you know, right there, oh, there are those spinning knives on the ring, which you spoke of.
Very appropriate for Ame Mountain, Ame daggers.
I gotta get me a pair of those. Great job by both of them. Again, not a flexible weapon, but a very loose catch-all category that's inclusive of these young Group A ladies, women, kids. The MA daggers. Near MA Mountain, here in Emeishan, Emeishan, in the Sichuan province, the great country of China, the 7th World Kungfu Championships. I believe we will wrap up shortly for the morning session. It has been fun and educational, inspiring. We will have one more session to go before the end of the World Championships, and these are the double flexible, well, a single flexible weapon. The men's Group A traditional soft weapon. Yes, so a single weapon. Group A, of course, men, tiny wee men, young men, Kianamaki. With the single weapon. Beautifully done. Great start. We have 4 more young men in the soft weapon, the Group A flexible weapons. And then we will break for some delicious Sichuan lunch, and we will return with an afternoon session. More beautiful weapons, forms from the incredible traditional Wushu, the 7th World Kungfu Championships. Jacob in the red, young American. This will be our last pair for the morning.
So there's a 3-sectional staff.
So a flexible weapon.
Casey Liu from the US is showing us. When the weapon is used, Robin, it should look like one staff now. So that's one of the characteristics of the flexible weapons. They are soft in structure, but at times should also look hard.
And he's developing that. It looks staff-like. I'm sure as he continues, it will look to be one firm staff. And the other young man with the double broadsword. If you can, please join us again in a couple of hours. We'll have a brilliant finish to a brilliant, brilliant festival and competition. A strong finish by this young man here. inspires me to think about how good these young men can become as they continue their martial arts journey. We will see their scores. Casey Liu moves into first. The young man who shares the mat, the carpet with him, moves to third. And a great performance by all of the young men and women today at the 7th World Kungfu Championships morning session of our final day here in Emeishan in the beautiful country of China. Tony Sims, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. That was an incredible joy to be able to see and experience today.
Robin, it's been a real pleasure to see such exciting performances here at the 7th World Kung Fu Championships. I look forward to our afternoon session.
And the afternoon session will come up in a few hours, and until then, enjoy the hostilities, my friends.